All right, welcome to the stream. And I've got some success right off the bat. Audio in my background here, which is in advanced properties, monitor off. There we go. Welcome to the stream, Winjumbi. Good question. The 1 watt VTX, don't have it yet. But what I do have is this little guy. 3D printed model of the 1 watt, so I can plan it out in a couple of my builds. Today we're going to be putting Whoop VTX inside of a Beta 85 frame. I've got 2 of these built already. One is an analog and one is on HD0. And I think I'm going to be fully switching everything over to HD0. So we're going to build a backup rig for some video shooting that I'm doing next week. Collaborating on a project with a local studio. Doing some work building on a portfolio so I can work on something for when I eventually retire. Little side hobby that I enjoy, and we'll see if we can make some money with it. So I really didn't do a whole lot of planning aside from putting a bunch of parts on the bench here. So I've built 2 of these already, and we're gonna just jump into it. So we've got a frame and a little carbon fiber plate for the bottom, which I don't have on my other builds, but we're going to give it a shot on this one. I have a Beta FPV flight controller, 4 Zing motors, 1103 10,000 kV, a TPU printed canopy with a holder on top for the Insta360 Go 2. And this is the main purpose that this rig's being built for. The canopy has the camera shoved way up forward, and the placement of the Insta360 Go 2 holder way up on the front. So when it's assembled, it's going to look like that. And it puts the camera forward enough to not have any props or ducks in view and get some really nice HD footage with a super small build. We're going to be putting Express LRS in the build. I've got 2 of these Flywoo ceramic antennas. I'm going to be throwing the other one in the other SharkBite build so that I have 2 matching rigs. And let's do some basic fitting here. So this is you'll notice the Whoop VTX says needs update plug fixed. Well, a big thank you and shout out to Here Comes Whitey from the HD0 Discord server for fixing this plug here. Right here. This was a Whoop board that I had in one of my 5-inch racing rigs, and when I tried to do the last firmware update, the update plug ripped off of the board, ripped a couple of the traces off, and he does some awesome micro soldering work. So he lives locally. I asked about it and managed to meet up with him, and took care of me, fixed it right up, showed me his setup, and now I've got my own little microscope and some stuff to tinker around with the micro soldering. Let's see if I can get myself into trouble with some old stuff that's already broken first before I go damaging anything that's important. We're going to be putting in this Runcam Nano HD0. This is the new camera. The new Nano camera, which is also what I have in the other build. So the whole point is to have two exactly matching rigs. Let's pop open the motors here. Get all of our parts on the bench. Little motors, little screws. The more and more I get into building these, the more I find that my eyesight's a little bit of a handicap. I've got to constantly be using a magnifier. Let's actually see how this looks. That's a little brighter. That'll work. And we've got a flight controller. It's already got the leads soldered on it. I do, however, need to take off these motor plugs because we're going to be direct soldering these little tiny motor wires onto the pads there. The board comes with some plugs and some screws, little grommets. Okay, won't need those boxes. So the first thing we're going to need to do is, on the other build that I have, put the flight controller down inside here. Very carefully. And part of me was thinking, if I'm gonna be putting the carbon fiber plate on there, would there be any issue with me just cutting some of this plastic on the bottom here? The carbon fiber is gonna butt up against that, and it's also going to reinforce the ducts. So part of me was thinking cut this off completely, and part of me was thinking maybe if I just cut it, stick the flight controller in there, and then glue it back together, or I could take it off altogether and save some weight. I know a lot of I've got a couple of Fractal Engineering kits coming to build a 65 and a 75 millimeter Whoop that use the carbon fiber base plate, and the ducts just mount right onto it. The other thing we need to consider is the VTX. The VTX is going to be mounting on the top here. And on the other build, I had to trim away some of the plastic right up in here on all four of these corners That just keeps the plastic frame from whacking, transferring vibration or impacts onto the VTX. Looks like we are going to need to do that. Let me pull out the build completed so we have a reference. So this is the final project we're going to end up with. And as you can see up in here, these boards are cut out just a little bit. And orientation wise, I've got the MIPI connector here. So we're definitely going to need to trim that. Not a whole lot. This new frame I have here actually seems like it's already got some sort of a cutout, just not as much as I'm looking for. And this port right here is going to be in the way. Now, I probably shouldn't be doing it this way, but I don't use this port to update the channel or anything. So we're just going to wiggle it back and forth, take it right off. Come on. There we go. Into the garbage you go. As I do all the updates in the VTX or in the OSD for changing the channel and stuff. So that's off of there. One less thing we got to worry about. So the only other thing that's really hitting hard is there's a capacitor or a chip directly underneath the update port. It's definitely hitting a little bit. So let's do a little remodeling. Going to take off a little bit on all four sides. Took a little bit more on the side where we know there's something in the way. And last time I used a little Dremel. This hobby knife actually seems to be doing a real nice cut on the plastic here without making as much of a mess. Okay, front is here with that larger screw hole. Let's see how the board fits now. So I want to take a little more there. A little bit on each one, just taper it a little more. And then on this one, right there. And then on each side, it's just a little more there. And last side. Scraps and the beverage. So that side's good. That side's good, and this is actually going to go on some grommets, which are going to raise it up a little more. So that's way fine. So now we need to make a decision. With this other build, I used the plugs. This is a Beta FPV flight controller with the Beta FPV motors. These are not the Beta FPV motors, they're Xing E motors. So the question's going to be, I'm going to direct solder them for sure, but where do I want to run the wires? And if I put this in like that, then I'll just be direct soldering them on the underside. Which will work. I just got to get the board in there. And then oh, this is what I want to do. I need to pull up the wiring diagram. For this flight controller. New window. that's not it. That's not it. This is it right here. Let's see. Beta FPV's website should be the one that has it, right? Has the decent diagram for it. F405 AIL, or yeah, AIL. So it's a 12 and a 20 amp. I have the 12 amp in the two builds right now. This is a 20 amp that I had picked up. Which weighs the same anyways, so why not have the extra current, right? The main thing, there we go, that's what I'm looking for. So it's got two plugs on it, and I think I used the plugs to power the receiver and the VTX. So we're going to do the plug off the front for the receiver, and this plug right here for the VTX, because the VTX needs battery, ground, TX, and RX. And let's just take a quick look at the existing build, because I think that's what I did. Yeah, and the other thing that I don't like about this build is I put this ginormous screw in the front of it here to hold the front of that canopy down. There's a way better way that I'm gonna do this time. We don't need household size hardware in the drone. So we're gonna pull these two screws here. Really expecting anybody in the chat here. It was nice to see Jumbie FPV pop in right at the beginning before the stream started. So here's the existing build. And down inside there, yeah, off the plug, I've got, let's just, this is a ridiculously done antenna here. Zip ties are easily redone. I've got new antennas anyways that I might be switching over to. And I did not use grommets on this. This is just directly screwed down to the frame here. Yeah, because I didn't break the tabs off. And the holes are just big enough for the little plastic jobbies to go in. On the other stack, I ripped the tabs, or the other VTX, I ripped the tabs off because that was stuffed inside of a racing build. those are all switched over to the race board now. But let's just have a look inside and see how this one is put together. Come here. It's wedged on there. Good. There we go. Oh, I put like half gummies underneath. I see. Oh, get rid of the little piece of grass in there. And whatever that is. So yeah, the VTX is going to get powered off of this plug on the side here. The receiver is going to get powered off of this plug on the front. And these are just little half gummies on the bottom to lift the board up off the base a little bit. This one currently has an Archer RS receiver in it. And I think that I want to switch that over to one of the ceramic Express LRS receivers. Only so that they're both the same. I do have the Archers in all my racing builds. I'm probably going to leave them until I break a few more, just because they work perfectly fine. So that is a snug fit there with the wires, but I haven't had any real problems with that. Let's get a box instead of putting that together. Keep this organized. So, couple screws. That's that. That just needs to be put back together after the receiver's switched. See if I get around to that. Got a beginnings of a job lined up for Tuesday. So I should really get to work. This already has a capacitor on it. I have capacitors on all my racing builds, but I just recently picked up some of the FETTech spike absorbers, and so I think I'm going to be using them on the racing builds as well, just to protect the VTXs a little more. So we need these two little plugs in here, because the flight controller is going to get buried down inside the frame. So this plug is going to go in the front. It's got a positive ground and TX and RX. And then that's what I need to look at. This has extra wires that we don't need. So it's got an S bus and ground on the top, RX, TX, ground and bat. So the S bus and ground can go. So these two right here. Pull them right out. They'll go in the extra little wires bin. And then this plug will give us what we need for the VTX. I am not really a fan of this plug right here being on the very front. It gets in the way. Of the little plastic standoff hole. I gotta put those gummies in, but I also have to take these plug headers off because we're not going to use them. So we're not going to break them, but we are going to pull the plastic on this. Should just separate or break like that. Yay. Wonderful. Let's see if we can have any luck like this. There we go. That's what I wanted. Just gotta break it free. So we're taking these plastic pieces off so that we can desolder these through pins one at a time instead of trying to loosen all three of them up at the same time to take the plug off. We're not reusing these plugs for anything. I haven't had any problems with the motor plugs, but everyone says that you get better performance and more reliability with directly soldering. So we're going to use our little helping hands here to hold the board for us. Fire up our soldering iron. We're going to flux these joints. And pull these plugs out. There's one. 2. Come on. Hit it from the back side. This is the annoying part. All this little. There we go. Just little soldering stuff. So that'll work a lot better. It's kind of annoying. You have to put some fresh solder on to get the heat transfer because the solder from the factory is lead free. The lead free solder just doesn't work as well. It doesn't take the heat, transfer the heat as well. So clean those up and retin them after I get all of them done. Come on, see you wiggling. There we go. And everything is so close to one another, so try not to get solder or loosen up or damage anything else while we're in here working on this. There we go. See, when I do it right, it works real quick. Just get a little fresh solder on there. Grab the end of that sucker. Heat up the base. Oh, almost. Off it goes. 3 more. There. Some fresh there. Come on. Like I got your neighbor off, but you don't want to come. Huh. Maybe if we had a better angle, that's a good angle right there. Oh my goodness. There we go. Yeah, I know I've got ridiculous amounts of solder kind of willy-nilly on these pads here, but we gotta get these pins heated up so we can get them out. There we go. There we go. Now we gotta clean these up really good. So this underside is where we're going to be soldering the motors onto. Let's do. Sure. What in the world are we listening to? Skip. All right. So we're going to tin these motor pads. It's too much. There we go. Yeah, that's not my... Okay. All right, got all the motor pads tinned up. Doesn't look like anything is touching. And we'll shut the iron down for now. Now, are those grommets going to be in the way? These are always a pain. The PCB is so narrow right there. Makes me think that it probably wouldn't be that big of a deal just to file that end right off of there. Irfan 26. You have the Beta 85X. Do you have the pre-built, or did you build your own? And do you have it on analog or HD0? So yeah, there it is. That PCB is already broken. So in that case, look, we just stick it in there. I don't know why. I don't even. Here, let's go ahead and just make life easier on us. There. They had just done that from the factory. Just show those right in there, and look, no problem. So this plug needs to go in the front here, which is annoying because there's a hole there and it's in the way. But this is the board we have to work with, so it is what it is. I think what I did on the other one, yeah, is I kind of split the wires so that they route like that, and then the screw doesn't get in the way. Very cool, brother. I have an analog built up already. I have one on HD0, and this is a second build on HD0. I'm curious to know what kind of setup you have if you want to type in your specs. I started off following the Mr. Shutterbug HD Whoop build, which has the Beta FPV 1103 motors. And then I've got another one that I built with these Zing E 1103 10,000 kV motors. I'm flying mine on 2S, and that's what this is. This is a cinematic rig. It's going to be using this 3D printed canopy with an Insta360 Go, and what it does is it puts the camera way up in front so that you don't get any ducts or anything in view. And I did some test flying today and things went pretty well. My only real no, it's not too bad. I'm running the 2S 525 milliamp hour Race Day Quads batteries, and I'm getting a good 2.5 to 3 minutes of flight time. The HD0, I'm totally happy with it. I'm in love with the look that I get, and the only issue is that the current Whoop VTX needs 2S voltage. So once you get down below 3.5 volts per cell on a 2S battery, that's 7 volts. Once I get down around 6.8 or so, if I try and push it below that, then the VTX will power off. But like I said, I'm getting 2.5 to 3 minute flights on it, which is plenty for doing some cinematic work. And I do have one of the run cam splits left over that's in a Whoop Factor. I might throw that on the analog build as another backup, or just to change that one around, have a third way to fly. That one's got a hard canopy on it, so it's got a little more up tilt on it. All right. Well, thank you for popping into the live stream. You are the second person who's popped in, and the first person that's really given me any interaction. It's my third live stream, and I'm planning on doing a couple more of these in the near future. I've got a Cinesplore build that I'm going to be doing with HD0. That one's it's the size of a 5-inch, but it's a 3-inch prop ducted Cinewhoop. So let's see if I can get this down below. Let me ask you this. Do you have the carbon fiber plate on your Beta 85 build? I don't have it on the two that I have built already, and I'm planning on putting it on this one just to see how it affects the handling. I mean, stiffening up the frame a little can't hurt, right? And I remember this being the hardest part of the other build, was just squeezing this whole flight controller into the bottom of the stack. It's probably not going to happen with the gummies on there, but we'll try. What's the worst that could happen? We break it and then we got to fix it again or rebuild it. That's really one of the funnest things of this hobby, if you ask me, is building. I could sit at the workbench all day tinkering. So yeah, we're gonna pull these two gummies out. I'll try and leave that one in, but we are definitely gonna clip the PCB here. Whereabouts are you from? I am in New York, upstate New York. Most people think of the city when they hear New York. I'm not a big fan of cities. I'm up in the country, about a half an hour outside of Albany. And I'll just flex it a little. Just shove it in there, right? There it comes. Come on. There we go. It's a tight fit, but it works and it makes the build nice and compact. So with that down in there, Indonesia, somewhere I've never been. What's it like trying to get parts for your stuff over there? Indonesia. Maps. Not very good on my geography. Indonesia, Malaysia. Indonesia. So you're above Australia. And below Vietnam. Below China. I know a lot of the guys that I follow in Australia, well, specifically RC Model Reviews. He's in Australia, New Zealand. And it's tough getting stuff over there, but if you're right below China, I would imagine that probably Banggood or other places like that are probably the easiest way to get stuff. Fortunate enough here in the U.S. to have a lot of U.S. retailers that have started stocking a lot of parts and pieces. And so let's see here. Did I, on this other build, did I do any cutting or moving? No. The flight controller is just wedged in there. All right. So we'll get these gummies back in here. And let's get them screwed in. Assortment of little tiny screws. You did say that you had the Runcam Split 4K. I have the Runcam Split in one of my 3-inch rigs, the Gep RC Signet. That's the bigger Runcam Split. And then I have a Runcam Hybrid in a Gep RC Cinequeen. And that's a really smooth flying 3-inch ducted cinematic rig. I really do enjoy flying that. I want the screws with the bigger heads on them. They'll hold those gummies a little better. This is the little one. So let's line these up. Little one, big one, big one, little one. Nope, that's a big one. Little one, little one, big one. We're going to use the big ones on the flight controller. So yeah, I'm happy with the Runcam Split video. The only thing is it doesn't have stabilization. Well, and the answer to that is just fly smooth, silly. But I got the I started off with so I've got a couple of GoPro Session 4s, the Hero 4s, and I got them for like $100 a piece. I've got 2 of them, very durable. I was running those in my 5-inch freestyle rigs. Not really too concerned about stabilization. They can't do the GoPro real steady because they don't have gyro data. The GoPro Session 5 does, but those are like purple unicorns right now. They're like $300-400 for a camera that's not even in production anymore. So I figured I would just settle with the Session 4s and beat them up, use them for flying. You little bastard. And then I got one of the Runcam Oranges, which apparently that has gyro data in it, and you can use that with the open source or free GyroFlow project. So I'm probably going to play around with that a little bit. But I picked up a 5-inch Recon 5 for some long range stuff, and I was like, oh, long range, I need something light. And so I picked up one of the Caddx Peanut cameras. Saw a couple reviews and I was like, oh, it's made for FPV. It can charge while it's on there. It's got the Insta360 stabilization, which is amazing. If you haven't used it or seen it, the stabilization from the Insta360 Go is just mind-boggling what it does to the footage. And then I smashed that into 1,000,000 pieces. And while I had it and was using it, I had some issues with the what do you call it? The mounting. So the Cadex took the Insta360 Go and they revamped it and put it in a different case. So none of the 3D prints for the Insta360 Go work on the Cadex Peanut. So I took a bunch of them, and on my 3D printer I like ballooned them a little bigger, just changed the aspect ratios a little, and that seemed to work okay, but it was annoying. So when that got destroyed, I was frustrated, and I decided to just get a Insta360 Go 2. Got one from Best Buy, which for us over here, I got the protection plan on it, so if I smash that one, I can just get a replacement for a small fee. And so I'm happy with that. And that's what got me into these little builds. I tried lifting the Go 2 with the Acroby 65, and yeah, no luck. The Acroby 65 is just not strong enough to lift it. So I've got a 75 millimeter build that I'm going to be working on, and that should be able to lift it just fine. So let's see where we're at here. So we've got the flight controller in. These wires are going to go to the BTX. These go to the receiver. The motors are going to get direct soldered. And we're going to use this base plate. So what kind of screws did the motor come with? Question would be, do I need to use special motor screws? Let's just dump all these out here. On one of these builds, I had to go into my bin of different sizes because all the motor screws were too long that came with the motors. I have a sneaky suspicion that it was these. Come on. So we've got longer screws. Longer screws. And shorter screws. So let's check out the short ones first. Short ones. Are gonna stick out that much. Which is 2.7 millimeters. Which, yeah, that's right up by the motor windings. I mean, it's probably not going to touch, but it's too close to be comfortable. Those might work through the carbon fiber. So let's do a couple of those. So let's go with this front one. Yeah, that'll work. Yeah, this base plate is what? 1.3 millimeters. I've got to figure out how to do this and keep the chat visible. If I move this window over, go out of studio mode, that'll kind of work. Yeah. Come on. All right. So I think we're going to get the motor started on here. We got the flight controller on. We got the plugs installed. We got the frame cut out. And we've been going for about an hour and a half here, I think. Drink's just about empty. And the hot tub's calling. So I think we're just going to get the motors on here. And we will finish this up tomorrow. So all we have to do is solder on the motors, solder up the receiver and the VTX, and then do some programming in Betaflight, which I have this exact build already. So that should be easy. I can just do a dump from the config file on that one. Pop it in this one, bind up the receiver, test it, make sure everything is working. Take her out for a test flight. There we go, a pile of wires and plastic. And front that way. And lucky me, this carbon fiber doesn't get in the way of accessing the motor pads on the flight controller. So 3 wires for that motor. Three wires for that one. This one comes this way. Wonder what time it is over there in Indonesia where Irfan 26 Arif is from. Right. So what time is it in Indonesia? Why in the world? It's like showing me restaurants. Look at this. What time is it in Indonesia? Copy. Google. 8 o'clock in the morning. All right. So just get these through here. All right, so we got to solder up motor wires. That'll be the biggest really time constraint for tomorrow. Just getting those done up because it's just small fiddly work. Receiver, VTX. It's gonna go back forward. These receiver wires. So the VTX wires are gonna get tucked down in there. And I'll have some little gummies in there just to give that some padding. Those receiver wires will come up. I'll go to the receiver up here. That'll be fine. $20 millimeter. No. Dummies. Yeah, let's just use these. I don't have to cut any of the other gummies that are already pre-made. dump them out. That'll just give us a little bit of spacing. Okay, screws for the VTX. VTX. Well, that's going to be it for tonight. Got a couple hours of work in. Got a good start. I already pretty much know where everything's going to go. So tomorrow's just going to be wiring, programming, and testing. Keep our fingers crossed that everything works and there's no issues. And I'll probably take this stream, do some editing, and chop it down. See if I can make it into like a... I'll probably have to take this one and the next one. See if I can make it into like a 10 or 15 minute build with lots of cutting and fast forwarding. Have a good night wherever you are and stay safe. Till next time.